Together. Hello and welcome to Daily Work Remote Strategies. Today we have one of my favorite people today. We have David Pollay, who is a close friend and an amazing executive coach, and he has a fabulous TED Talk that you should go watch. And I said this before about David. He's a person who has taught me about telling stories again and again. We all have stories and we just forget about them. So he's really taught me about telling those stories because it's what we know and what our experience is, and that's what we can share with people, our own real stories. David Pollay is the author of these two amazing best-selling books. I will put the links into the chat: The Law of the Garbage Truck and The Three Promises. These are international bestsellers. I'll just keep them up in many languages. They're awesome, they're amazing, they're superb. And today, David's going to talk to us about success on your own terms. Welcome, 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 David. Hi.
Thank you, Senya. Appreciate it. It's great to be back with you. And it is true. And I'm glad to be able to say it to the world that Senya is not only a wonderful colleague, she is a super great friend. And we were actually in the cohort together at the University of Pennsylvania, which was really cool, and the first Master's in Positive Psychology program, when we were still very young, right?
Exactly, tiny. I was 7, you were 10 years old. It was amazing. It was so cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's great to be with you guys. So there's so many things when Senya and I talk about doing the 20-minute presentations. There's so much that I just want to pack it in and just throw so many things at you. And today I thought what I would do is throw a framework at you that is helpful for success in careers, your success in your career defined in the way that you want. And so I'm going to start off, if that's okay. We're going to do that, and then I will tell a couple stories probably to lock in some learning, as Senya talked about, and then some tools, or at least references to tools, either in the presentation or during the Q&A at 20 after the hour. But so let's start with a little fill in the blank. This is what I ask many of my executive coaching clients, this question, and I just ask them when I ask them this, what do they most want for their children, if in fact they have children or they're planning on having children, and so I say, what do they most want to have for their children? And then they say, I just want, and this is where you fill in the blank, I just want my kids to be happy, is what almost everyone says. And so happy is the answer. Although one time I was speaking to an audience of executives, and when I said, I just want to be happy, an executive in the front row just yelled out, said, I just want my kids to be quiet. And so I started laughing on stage, and the whole place went crazy. And now with the coronavirus, which has us all, most of us are working at home, frontline folks, boy, God bless you for helping us. But we're most at home, so that quiet is the mute button, and then I'm on the call, which is just a lot of fun. But then I go back to my executive coaching client and I'll say, okay, so happy is what you want for your kids. What else? And usually there are two other answers that come up, and it's healthy. They want their kids to be happy, healthy, and successful, or at least to make enough money to move out of the basement or the garage, wherever you might live. And so the happy, healthy, and successful. And then I'll ask, well, what do you want for yourself in terms of, and this is separate from business needs and so forth, performance goals and so forth that we have when we're doing executive coaching, but just at this core question, I say, what do you want for your life? And the answer is basically the same. Yeah, I want to be happy. I want to be successful, and I want to be healthy. So with that, I want to share with you a framework that to help you think about what you might want to include in your day-to-day living that helps you build a successful career, but also has you enjoy a successful day, because a career is made up of successful days over time. And as an executive that I know from Logitech days when he was the Senior Vice President of Operations at Logitech, Joe Sullivan he says that your wisdom is a buildup of experience after experience, and so in that spirit, we want to have good days, fulfilling days. So the framework that I want to share with you, and Senya's so great about including notes in the chat section. You can follow along here. What I've found is that that to be happy in my research and my traveling around the world is that it's a formula, and this is the framework. So the formula is to be happy and successful and healthy. That equals your ability to create fulfillment every day and to navigate negativity. To do both of those things, to create fulfillment and to navigate negativity. And so the idea is, first of all, with creating fulfillment and navigating negativity, I'll say, so when do you want that to happen? When do you want to be able to be happy, successful, and healthy? And they'll say, now. I want it now. And I say, well, that's good. And I want it in the future. And so I want to build a career that keeps me happy, successful, and happy, successful, and healthy. So what I found is in that formula, I'm going to break that formula down. So the creating fulfillment every day is comprised of three things that I've discovered and tested with people following this formula each for a week and seeing how it changes their feeling of happiness and success. And that is creating fulfillment is made up of find joy every day. Second is to do what you love, which is using your natural strengths in something that you feel really good about, and you get creative and excited. And then thirdly is making a difference. So you're making a difference in the world of other people and making a contribution to the world or to your workplace and to others in your life. And so that's the create fulfillment piece. And the navigate negativity piece is when I ask the question, how often do you let a bad driver or a rude waiter or a curt boss or an insensitive employee ruin your day? People will say, boy, it's kind of natural to get set back on your heels, to be a little off your game when people do that. And that's when you have to navigate negativity. And that's when I talk about what I call the law of the garbage truck, which just so happens that we had a webinar with Senya just about a month ago. So it's up on Facebook in this group that Senya runs. And so you can learn about the navigating negativity on that webinar, and there are resources around the web that you can find as well. But so the create fulfillment, I want to double click in that space and say, so, and here's the framework. The framework that I'm sharing with you is that you can populate how you create fulfillment and how you navigate negativity with what works for you. The key, the claim I'm making though, is that if you can't control your fulfillment, if you're not able to create your own feeling of fulfillment on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to be happy, healthy, and successful. You're going to have too much stress, which is not good for your health. You're not going to be successful because you're not going to be at your best, and you're not going to display as much positive emotion, which is like gratitude, creativity, curiosity, and such. You will be, and you won't be as happy because you're not having these components of happiness, as I was saying, finding joy, doing what you love, making a difference. So what we want to be able to do then is you fit stuff of your own in that framework, or when I work with executives, I have like 50 strategies that we move through over time that help you fill in these categories. So a couple of them I want to share with you. And they are, when we talk about finding joy, that's the first place that we'll start. And that is, I guess the key here that I want to emphasize is it's increasing positive emotion in your day and increasing positive emotion in your career and in your life. Because one of my bosses years ago, Heidi Goff, when she was a general manager at MasterCard and I was her chief of staff, she used to talk about the gears that employees are like a whole big connection of gears. Gears are connected to each other. And so when the boss and the leader is feeling good and turns, everyone around them turns and turns towards the positive. And that has an effect, a positive spiral effect. If the boss is not in charge of their positive emotion, or rather they're finding joy every day, that they can turn the wheel the other way or turn the gear the other way, and that negativity then rolls down the line and hits people all across the company and or the division or your department or your group. And so the key is then, how do you trigger that positive emotion? So the quick little story was, first I have to give credit to one of my daughters, who I'm going to talk about in just a moment, cleaned off my back table just before I started here. And she said, "Papi, a successful leader is a one without clutter." So she helped me with that. I thought that was great. So I learned lessons all the time. But so the quick story is, when I was in my office years ago, I was just, getting ready for the day. And I was, I have to admit, I wasn't feeling that great that day. And I was doing what you typically do when you're not feeling good. I looked down at the floor, and I was just, kind of looking down and not feeling great. And then all of a sudden I started laughing and smiling. And I, because I looked down at my shoes and I saw that I had stickers on my shoes. And these stickers, I realized my girls at the time, are 2 and 3, had slipped stickers on my shoes when I was kissing my wife goodbye that morning. And I just imagined them doing that and getting away with it without Papi knowing that this was happening. And so just thinking of that made me laugh and smile. And then I looked at the time and I said, it's 11:15 in the morning. Where have I been all morning with stickers all over my shoes? And it was then that I realized that the stickers on my shoes were what I call a positive trigger. They triggered my positive emotion. And what I realized is later in research is that positive emotions, they increase our success in so many ways. We help people more often. We feel better. We're more creative. We're more curious, easier to be grateful. Positive emotions just really have a very powerful effect. And so in a workshop that I would do, or in an executive coaching client conversation, and this is what I'd ask you to do if you just got this out of this session, would be helpful. And that is, what are your positive triggers? What are all those things that make you happy, make you feel successful, make you feel that you're in your best place? So that's the first thing, is think about your positive triggers. So this will help you now, like immediately. One of my positive triggers is music. So if I'm in a down mood, for whatever reason, I'm off my game, and I didn't follow the law of the garbage truck as much as I should have, and let the negativity roll through me rather than around me. And so I can stay focused on what's important. I'll put on some quick music, some headphones, and and you just can't, there's certain songs you just can't stay down. It just makes you, lifts you up with a smile. So there are lots of things like that. So think about positive triggers, and yes.
Here's some comments that people
Please.
are giving on positive triggers. People like your music example. So some answers are sleep. Sleep is a positive trigger. Smiles from their grandkids. Naps, walking. So those are some that people are using.
Oh, that's terrific. Those are all, and they all have major health benefits. If we took each one of those, they're all super. And I right on my computer, the person who said smile from the grandkids, I have smile generally, just make sure to smile, because it's amazing what it does. That's one of the key. You just find some of the most successful executives are the ones who can smile broadly, even when things are tense, which is really super. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you about positive triggers. I also wanted to share with you one other thing real quick, is one of the major things that I find with executives that is very helpful, that helps with the positive emotion, really with everything, is setting your intention before you start your day, before you start your meetings. And even if you just say, before I get into the office, before I get out of my car, or before I log into Zoom, as it is these days, is to say, who do I want to be today? And for some folks, that sounds like frou-frou, but I mean, literally, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? How do I want people to experience me? There's so many ways of asking this question. What's my brand? What are people going to feel when they see me? And so I set the intention. So I say, just come up with three or four things, and then write them down and put them in a place where you can see them. And it's amazing. Just yesterday, I had a meeting that I was going to be in with one of my daughters, and I was tired, and I thought, I'm going to go over that meeting tired. And then I said, wait a second, what's my intention? I said, no, I want to be lighthearted. I want to be attentive. I want to be involved and have fun. And then all of a sudden that made me change. So I ended up doing some fun little things with cards that I gave to her right before the meeting. And she was like, oh, that's so cute. And I would never have done that unless I had purposely stopped and set my intention. So that's what I wanted to share with you there. Time is moving fast. So I'll share just a quick story about strengths, and that, well, I may have to. I think it's well. Here's the quick version of the story, is that in order to feel good about not only your own career as a leader and the way you feel, is your ability to make other people feel good and help other people live a fulfilled life, and to help them navigate the negativity and help them find fulfillment in their work. And one of the keys is navigating, is calling out strengths and seeing the good things that people do and catching them doing them when they're successful. And the story that is in the 3 promises, which I will just tell you the punchline, is that when I was growing up, my dad was a really good packer, and he would pack trunks of cars whenever we would go on trips. And one day he couldn't get a bag in the back of the trunk, and I was like 9 years old. And I looked in the trunk, and I just moved a couple bags around, and I grabbed one last bag, and boink, I got it right into place. And this is where I'll close, is my dad looked down at me, and I used to call him Big Lou because he was like 6'3", and he crossed his arm and looked down at me, and he said, "David, you're a good packer." And I'm 55, and I still can remember that moment just so brightly. And just this morning, I received an email from an executive coaching client who said that they had used the recognition work that we were doing to make a difference, and recognizing someone else, and just what a profound difference it made to their employee. And then my executive felt terrific as well. So those are just a couple things to fit into your framework of the happiness and success formula. And boy, time flies when you're having fun. So I'll turn it back to Senya, and maybe we have some time for some questions.
So I would encourage you all, please start typing your questions into the chat or into the Q&A. I would encourage you all to check out, and I will put this in the link, especially on your Kindle, now that we have so much access to our Kindle and on demand. Some of the things, as you see in the subtitles here. So find joy every day, do what you love, make a difference. And again, David, I just love your stories about these things.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Here's a question that came up. You described that you go through this process with your clients, the joy, the do what you love, and the make a difference. And you said that within these 3, you use something like 50 tools to guide your clients through this. Can you give us an example of one of these tools?
Yeah, absolutely. One of them is one of the most powerful tools you can use for giving feedback to an employee, whether it's positive feedback or developmental feedback or correction feedback where something didn't go right and you need to address it. And that is, I call it, the acronym that I call this is VAR, and the initials are VAR. And it's a framework for putting together a compliment or a recognition statement, or giving again corrective feedback. And so I'll use the positive example. Positive example is V stands for values. And so what you do is you set the context for people as to why what you're about to say matters. So around here, we really value the important, and you don't have to use these words value. You can just say around here, what's important to us is that we work together, we collaborate, we don't have surprises, and we recognize each other. And so I might say something like that. And then the actions are being very specific about what you saw the employee do. What did they do as if a video camera was on them, and write down every single thing you can think of, so that when you say to somebody, around here, we really value recognition, recognizing other people. And I saw the way you, and then, went into his office or his cube, and then you brought him over to the employee meeting and blah, 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 whatever those actions were. Be specific, because the employee who's listening to that is going, wow, my boss really knows what happened. That's what happened. And so then they believe that it's truly a compliment, because that's what they experienced. And then the R is the results. What are the results of, why does it matter? What's the impact? So what are the results? So you can say, and as a result of that, our productivity in our group has already increased in the way we are collaborating in customer service or in engineering or whatever the case might be. Whatever the answer is, it might be money saved, or increased revenue, or increased productivity, or increased morale, increased fulfillment, whatever that is. And you share that with that individual, and you use that when you speak to them, and you use it when you write to them. And it's amazing what you experience. And again, I just received another email about the same thing, that just doing that, even just stopping by a cube and quickly doing that, makes a difference. So VAR, VAR.
VAR, and it's a tool for both giving compliments and recognition, as well as giving feedback of something you would like changed.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And same idea. If it's for corrective feedback, is context is what are our values, what happened, what we saw that wasn't in alignment with what we wanted done, and here's the impact. We lost money, we lost the job, we have someone quit, whatever the negative impact is, and then so that again it's really clear as to what that is.
And where they're moving towards.
Moving forward, right. And then we'll actually, if we really take this, the real power of it is then to come back with the VAR and then saying the impact that we're looking for, the results we're looking for are the following. These are the actions that are critical, and this ultimately supports our values. So you come back up from the R to A to the V. To the R to the A to the V. It sounds like a rap.
Now you're doing, so I'm just going to give our attendees a little view. We, as executive coaches, we do a stretch or a breathing exercise with our clients before we start a session. David has been known to do a dance with his clients.
We did the grease lightning at one point in time. That's just right. Slow motion, go grease
That's
lightning.
Right. That's right.
Pretty fun.
At this point, we always ask you to tell us, what is your one takeaway? What are you taking away from this session? What will you do differently? Whether it's about joy or strengths, doing what you love, or making a difference, or about anything else that either David said or that you've had as a thought. So what are you about to do differently? And we'll give you a moment to type that in, to let us know what those things are. And as you're typing that in, I promised you that I would, and the book is called The 3 Promises. I will drop that link in there as you type that in. So things that people are taking away, they'll as they come in, I'll say them, David. Okay. And one kind of remaining question, as people are figuring out these things with the coronavirus and with the tough things that are going on, is there any one of these 3 that you actually recommend that they focus on? Is there a way to decide day to day which of these 3, joy, doing what you love, and making a difference, to emphasize?
I'll just stay on the theme of recognition. There's some research that and the number is really high. I want to say there's an 80% increase in productivity as a result of powerful recognition during this coronavirus. I don't have the study at hand, so I can't quote the particulars, but it's really high. Excuse me, it's really high. And so when I say the recognition piece is that when you give good news and you recognize someone doing something nice, there's a lot of positive emotion that you have yourself. You feel good about yourself that you're recognizing somebody, so you get the positive emotion piece. And they get that, they feel that, you feel it, they feel it. It's a nice circle. And then when you get to the giving them that recognition, it feeds back to you, and it's very powerful. So recognition, I would say, and it's meaningful. You're making a difference in someone's life. They're going to go home and talk to their family about it. It's going to make the dinner conversation. And then from a strengths perspective, you're acknowledging someone and doing something well. And so it's just a virtuous cycle. And it's just, when people get it for the first, it's like if you've ever learned how to juggle, and I'm not a good juggler, but the first time I learned it, it was like, whoa, it worked. The three balls, actually you're still in the air, and that's kind of like, once you really hit the recognition moment, boy, it makes a huge difference in people's lives.
So you notice the cycle. Once you're giving someone recognition, that they can go home and they can tell their family.
Yeah, I call it in the law of the garbage, I call it the gratitude cycle. When you're in the gratitude cycle, you're an attractor. So you attract positive things and more in people's attention and interest and contribution. And it's just a beautiful thing.
So what I'm getting from what David's saying is, as you walk away from this webinar in a minute, text somebody that you care about. Just do something fast. Do something that takes you a little bit, right, David? Something even quick.
Absolutely. Even just a quick note, it makes such a big difference in people's lives. I've talked to the CEOs who will say, I got an email from a first level employee who said they really appreciated what I said at the all hands meeting. And they'll tell me that the employee has no idea of the full impact of it. But I can tell you right now, even CEOs appreciate feedback that are positive. So that's awesome. Great.
Here are the comments we're getting about what people are taking away and what they're going to do as actions. How to show up with that intention, like David gave the example of lighthearted. How to show up, setting intentions. So the intentions really stuck with people. Setting intentions early in the day, and just looking for positive moments. So those are some of the biggest comments that we're having repetitively. So the intentions really stuck with people.
And I say write them down. I have mine written down. So what I have to say, awesome. Confident, upbeat, listener, and questions, just for my executive coaching today. And smile again. See this?
But I love it how you have it sort of up high and present, right?
Yeah,
right next.
Just keep it on my desk, right wherever, and I change it every day depending on what. Keeping it fresh.
I think you just let your daughters back in, even though they're not 2 and 3 years old, every once in a while, to put more stickers on your shoes.
Yeah, now I just keep a picture in the back and but anyway.
David, thank you so much. This is David's book. I've put a link in. Thank you so much for these really specific examples of very specific things we can do today and this week and this year. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. All the best. See you again tomorrow and every day at 11 a.m. Tomorrow we have a joint session with Springboard Enterprises, which is a women's entrepreneurship organization. So we invite you to that on health and wellness. Looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.